What's going on, guys? Deadbeat Devs here. For our second ever build, I decided that my old one just wasn't cutting it. It was only a year ago, but hey, you know what? I decided to create a whole new build, got all the parts right here. Starting off with a Corsair Carbide Series 100R Silent Edition, one of Intel's new Skylake processors, a Core i5-6500, not the K, the non-K version. I don't plan on doing any overclocking. A Sapphire R9 Fury X, oh yes. 16 gigabytes of HyperX Fury DDR4 RAM. Corsair's RM-H50 modular power supply, should be silent as well. 2 terabyte WD Black for all those games. 2 crucial 250 gigabyte SSDs. I'm going to be dual booting Windows and Ubuntu, so we'll see how that goes. And for the Movo, an ASRock Z170 Pro 4S. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so first off, we're going to start with the motherboard. We're going to install our RAM and our CPU. First thing to notice is that I'm using an anti-static mat to, just for safety purposes. With this, it has a grounding cord. Just attach that to yourself right here so that no static will be generated. So yeah, let's get started on this. Alright, so we have our instruction manual, backplate, various cords, driver CD, one tiny little screw. Not sure what that's for yet, but we'll get to that. So we have our motherboard and our anti-static bag. And we're going to be using the box as a little workstation just to make things easier. Here is the motherboard. So first we'll just start off with the RAM. Obviously we'll just go with our DIMM slots right here. Now the manual said to use 2 and 4, but that just doesn't seem right because usually you want to go with the 2 closest ones, which would be 1 and 3. So we'll do that. And RAM is, relatively simple. Just kind of pops right in. This first one and the second. It should just click in and lock itself in. As long as that happens, you're good. Oh, that's how you install a couple sticks of RAM. I know, very complicated process, right? Next, we'll go with the CPU. Now, for this, it's going to go right here. There's a little cap they put on it, actually, to sort of just protect it. Get the little boom arm out. So you unlock it. Just take this off. And also we're using the stock cooler. Not really worry about overclocking at all, like I said, so it should run fine just the way it is. Been mistaken before. The cover that goes over the CPU will actually pop off as soon as the CPU is installed, so don't worry about that. Now the CPU itself, now this is an Intel motherboard, so you can only use an Intel processor with it, obviously. But, just in case anyone didn't know. Now, on the CPU itself, it's going to fit in only a certain way. You have to just sort of line it up with there's like a little, tiny little indents in the side of it that actually line up with, let me show you. These little notches right here. I know it's probably impossible for you to see this in the camera, but trust me, they are there, and that is how it should sit in the socket. So it should just drop right in, and that's it. We'll just close it up. And there's the cap, popped right off. Now, the next step, installing our cooler. Alright, so for our cooler, I'm just using the stock Intel fan. The fan itself already has its thermal paste applied to it already, as you can sort of see right here. We're going to be wiping that off ourselves because we have something a little better, some Arctic Silver. So for that, you want to use a microfiber cloth to wipe it off, and you want to really make sure you get as much of it as possible, preferably all. And that's about as much as we're going to get off of it. Now, for the thermal paste, you want to apply this directly to the CPU, and you obviously don't want to use too much, just enough to, when you put the fan on, when it presses down, it'll compress it and then spread it out. There's a bunch of different ways you can do, like an X, a couple crosses. What we like to do is just like a grain of rice style, where you just put one drop right in the center that will then spread out about evenly. That should be good. Okay, cap that. Now, before we're going to install the fan, we want to find out where it's going to connect to. We have this 4-pin plug. It's going to find a 4-pin header on the motherboard itself. So for us on this one, it's actually right here. So you want to orient the fan where the plug is going to be as close as possible to it, so it's not just kind of reaching across or hanging around anywhere. So for the fan, it's very simple. Just line it up and place it on. And with these, it's just sort of like push pins where you just kind of push opposite corners and it should connect. You'll hear a little click and it's in. And then just install the 4-pin header. Just sort of adjust the wire so it's not going to hit the fan or anything. And there we go. That's our CPU and our RAM. Alright, so before we get started installing the motherboard, one thing we need to mention is that because we're using an R9 Fury X, which comes with its own all-in-one cooler and really large radiator, this case only has enough room for 3 fans. 2 are included, with one being right here, one over here, and there's a spot for one right next to the hard drive bays, right over here. The R9 Fury X fan is obviously not going to fit here, so we're going to have to take the fan that's on the front and just move it down one notch so we have enough room over here for the Fury X. Like I said, we're putting on the outside. For this part, we are also making sure that we're keeping this fan as intake. Usually for the fans, as long as the sticker is facing out, it's intake. So if you want it to be exhaust, flip it around. Alright, so now we're ready to install the motherboard. Before we do that though, put in the I/O shield, of course. And it is... Oh, now it's all the way through. Now for the motherboard. Now you want to identify where your standoff screws are. This has them already pre-installed, so pretty simple. Just lower it in. You also want to be careful that as you're putting it in, you don't drag it across the bottom because you could really screw up the bottom of the motherboard, and no one wants that. Oop, that didn't sound good. What?
You sure your I/O stuff is plugged in the back?
Yep. Oops. It is poking through. Oh, except the DVI, no, VGA, excuse me, is not quite where it should be. It's like bending it now. There we go. That's better. Alright, so now it's time to screw the motherboard in. You want to identify where your standoff screws are. Usually the instruction manual will tell you that, but usually they should look like this, or something close to it, depending on what motherboard you're using. Alright. Alright, so now that our motherboard's installed, it's time to just install all the fan headers and I/O headers as well. Um, Something to note that this case comes with its own pre-installed fan controller. All the cords for that are right here. However, we're not going to use it because this motherboard has enough headers for all of our fans, and it's easier to control it in BIOS. Alright, so now we're going to start installing our fans into the fan headers on the motherboard. Most headers are 4-pin, however the fans are 3-pin, so just make sure you are able to identify the correct male end to the correct female end. This one goes right here. Also, work on cable management after you're done. You don't want cords just sort of like hanging over your CPU and all that. Something to look for when you're installing your fan headers is that the headers will have little labels like CHA fan 1, CHA fan 2, and something like that. Sometimes they're on the bottom, sometimes they're on the side. Try to just match up ones that are closest to where the fan actually is. Alright, so, and that's it for the fans. Now for the I/O.
So now we're going to deal with this big bunch of cables over here. And this is for your front panel I/O. So you have a couple things up there. Remember your headphone jack, your microphone jack, and that's going to be handled through this HD audio plugin. We'll plug that into the motherboard. This is for your USB 3.0 plugin, and there's a spot for that too that we'll show you. And all of these tiny ones that say things like reset switch, whatever, you can imagine what they do. There's a header spot that they all will go in. It's kind of finicky to get them all in, but we'll do a close-up shot and try and show you exactly what's going on. It's just what powers, say, the LEDs and the switches and stuff like that. So we're going to have to kind of match the plug to the label. It's going to be hard to see in the video, but you know, look at your manual if you have any issue. It's usually pretty easy. So HD audio, our HD audio plugin is down right here. And just make sure, you see there's a pin missing here, just make sure it lines up with the pin that's missing on the motherboard. So, go back to that. So plugging in the front panel headers was a bit of a pain, since we didn't have one of those buses, whatever it is to plug it into. But you see what I did is I took the cables and I routed them around back and up through this hole right here. They're a little messy right now, but we'll pull them back and make the cable management look all nice. Also up here you'll notice I didn't point to it, but I plugged in the USB 3.0 header. It's fairly easy to find, it's just labeled USB 3.0. It's quite large. Alright, so next thing we're going to install is the power supply in this basement area right here. So for our power supply we have the Corsair RM850, so it's a 850 watt modular power supply. You see all the ports you can plug into right there. Now it came with, with all of these cables for the modular power supply. But we've picked out the ones we need right here. I'm going to show them to you real quick. First, in no particular order, we have our CPU, and I'm showing you both ends of it, both of the male ends. So this is 8-pin, and it'll go to the 8-pin CPU power, which is up here. Let's see, what do we got next? Here we have our PCIe power. This is 8-pin that goes into the power supply, and then you get two 8-pins on the end. Since the R9 Fury X takes two 8-pin powers, this will be perfect for that. Our graphics card. Next, we need this SATA power. So we have a 6-pin that'll go into the power supply. And then we have these daisy-chained SATA powers. There's 4 of them, and since there's 2 SSDs, a mechanical hard drive, and the optical drive, actually, this will be perfect for what we need. We'll see, we might need another one just to make cable management a bit better to run it, because the optical drive is going to be up here at the top. And lastly, and pretty much everyone will need this, is our 24-pin power. This goes to the motherboard. This 24-pin right here. Some motherboards are only 20-pin, usually older style. So in that case, you could just take this 4-pin and push it off to the side and just use this. So now we're going to move on to installing the actual power supply. So we moved over to this side of the case and pointing at the bottom for this shot to install the power supply. We're going to install it, just slide it right in, make sure not to hit any of the cabling. And you'll notice the fan is going to be pointing down, working as an intake to cool the internals. It works because there's actually a mesh right here with a dust filter, and it just makes it so the power supply is its own kind of system. It doesn't contribute any heat or get any heat from the rest of the system. So you're going to want to identify the bag of screws that are meant for the power supply that came with your case. In this case, these are these. I don't know if you can get a really good view of those. And then installation's quite simple. Just slide it in. Make sure it fits all snug, it's not hitting anything. And then there's just going to be 4 screws on the back, and just screw it in. Well, I was only able to get in 3 out of the 4 screws, but it's solid in there. So power supply is installed. Now we're just going to run our cables through it for it. So, okay. So I'm going to go fast through this part. Ooh, that's not a good shot at all. So this part's going to be fast, just pretty simple. Just, again, take the power. Yeah. So I'm going to go through this part rather quickly. Pretty much just take all the cables I talked about earlier, plug them into the power supply, route them around the back, so your cable management is pretty neat, and then just route them back through when you're close to the connector and plug it in. Simple as that. So now taking the CPU power, I've run it, plugged it into the power supply, ran it behind the case, and popped it back through. And the CPU power, it's, I'm sure, impossible to see, but it is up here. You can identify it on your motherboard. It's labeled, and it's usually 8 pins, or 4 and 4 separate. So just plug it right in and manage your cables. So next you want to do the same thing with your 24-pin power, which I'll poke through here. And this is what's going to power your motherboard and all the peripherals on it. Audio card, run power to the PCI Express slots, stuff like that. So take all 24 pins, attach the +4, and just plug it in. Alright, so I've, as you see right here, ran the 24-pin power and the 8-pin power for the CPU. So our build is coming along nicely. What we've got left to do is install the hard drives and run the power to them, and then install the graphics card, run the power to it, and not much else. So let's get on to the graphics card. Before we even try to do our graphics card installation, we've got to take out some of these PCI Express slot panels on the back. So our PCI Express slot is going to actually be the second one, and it's going to take up 2 slots, so we need to remove the second and third slot right here for the actual I/O to stick out. So we got this out. Now we're ready to actually plug our card into the PCI Express slot. Okay, so what you're going to do is, these little clips are different on every motherboard, but you're going to want to either push it down, or in this case we push it back so it's open and ready to accept a card. Orient your card the right way so the PCI Express slot's down, and make sure you don't have any, this one doesn't, it's already taken off, but they have rubber shields, make sure you take those off first, and slide it into the card. Alright, and there's the installation of the graphics card. There was actually another piece right here on the back I had to screw out so the graphics card would fit in, but no worries, we'll just put that back in and we'll be all good. So you're going to want to take the screws now that you took out of these little panels you removed and use them to secure the graphics card back in. These things are pretty heavy with their heat sinks and everything, so yeah, just make sure it's not wobbling around a bunch. We've got the graphics card plugged into the PCI Express slot. However, this Radeon R9 Fury X came with its own all-in-one cooler radiator right here, 120mm fan attached to it. So we need to install this in that that space where we took out that pre-installed fan. So we're gonna go do that now. So I just swapped the case around 180, and we do need to make one modification to this. We need to swap the fan around. Right now, the fan would be blowing this way, and because of the way that the tubes are facing, that would mean this would be running as an exhaust with the fan blowing this way. We want it running as an intake. It's it'll increase our ambient temperatures in our case a little bit, but we'll get fresher air for the graphics card, and it'll help cool it a lot more. So I'm gonna take this fan off and swap it around. So now we've swapped the fan around. For the record, I'm not totally sure if you're actually supposed to do that, but whatever. C'est la vie. So now we're gonna just put this in the area where we took that fan out, that stock fan, make sure the tubes are at the bottom so they're kind of out of the way. These tubes. So the radiator's installed, the fan's on there, and the fan, by the way, actually, the power comes from the graphics card, so we're fine with that. But we do still need to run the PCI Express power to the graphics card, so I'm going to route that through, do that now. That's been plugged in. We'll worry about cable management when we're nearing the end. Last thing to do is hard drive and the optical bay up here. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is install our SSDs here. So this is one of them, we have two. So this is a toolless drive cage. Just take it out, and you're going to want to find these little hard drive screws. They're the teeniest ones in our case, but just look at your manual if you're not sure. Just take them, screw them right onto this, and make sure that when you put it back in, this side will be facing the back, because that's where you're going to put your SATA power and your SATA data cable. Alright, so we got our first SSD secured to the toolless drive cage, and just slide it right back in. And we're going to do the same for the second. Just a note, you don't need to put all 4 screws into the bottom of these. You know, they don't have any moving parts in them, but whatever. Why not? On to the next one. Okay, so we've got our second SSD screwed in. We're just gonna throw that right in there. And now for the third one, for full-size hard drives, these are actually totally toolless. So what you do is take your hard drive, you orient it so the I/O is facing the right way, and power. And there are actually going to be these little plugs on the toolless drive cage. Line them up with the holes in the side of the hard drive. Line up 2 of them on one side. And then they should match up on the other side, and you can just snap right in like that. And you can put it right into the case. Be sure not to drop it. It's pretty fragile in there. We're gonna go to the other side and run SATA power as well as SATA data cables. Next part, the optical drive, the much beloved optical drive. Some people say you don't need one, but they're like 20 bucks, just whatever. You know, when you find an old Roller Coaster Tycoon CD sitting around somewhere, you'll be thankful you had one. So to install it, we basically just slide it right in, and we'll show you that right now. So this case actually makes installing things into the 5 1/4 inch bays on the front super easy. It's got these latches right here that will latch tight when you actually put something in. So turn the case so we can see the front here. It's literally just as simple as pick top or bottom, slide it right in, and it's actually locked in right now. It won't be sticking out at all when we put the front panel back on, but yeah, that's it. Now we have our hard drive installed, but we need something that'll actually carry the data to the motherboard and you know, get that good data off your hard drives. So we're gonna use this SATA cable, serial ATA cable, whatever that means. So basically, turn your case around, and I'm sure the cable management looks super good right now. We'll fix this later. But you're going to want to find, and I'll give you a better shot in a second. So all of your drives are going to have SATA data and a SATA power connection. You can see this smaller one right here fits this cable. It's going to be the SATA data, and this is going to be SATA power, which we ran already. We're going to plug it in a second. So take this, plug it in, and you're going to want to wrap this cable now around to the front of your motherboard so we can plug it in. And do this with all your hard drives and optical drives. So now I've routed these SATA data cables to the front, and we need to now connect them to the SATA ports. So on our motherboard, they're located right here. They're pretty easy to find. They're quite distinct, so just plug them in. So now we ran the SATA data cables, and now we just have to run SATA power. So SATA power is this long daisy-chained connector we ran previously, and we're just going to plug this directly into the back of the hard drives, SSDs, and optical drives, or whatever else you have. Alright, one small issue, this is our last SATA power connector, and we need it to run all the way up to the optical drive at the top. So it looks like it's not going to work. We're going to have to take another SATA power connector and run just it up to the optical drive. Alright, so technically this computer build is all done. One problem though is there are cables everywhere. So we're going to get to work with zip ties and tie those all down, put the panels back on, and yeah, boot this thing. Alright.
Here we go.
And first time ever powering it on, Steve. We're gonna see if this works.
Might help if we turn the power supply on.
The jury's out on this one. I didn't know. Okay, whatever. Go for it.
Okay, here we go.
Interesting.
Oh, wait, what?
There we go.
I got scared for a second. That was...
Power seems to be going. And now we're just watching the monitor, see if it posts. Let's see.
It's nice and quiet.
It's not too loud. The monitor is not getting any input yet. Oh, it just got some input. Some LEDs came on. Looks like it's posting. Yep. Reboot and select proper boot device. Steve, you do not have a boot device.
I do not.
Time to install operating system, bitches.
Will it be Windows or Bluetooth?
Well, seeing as how we're gaming first.
Windows.
Are you excited, Steve? How do you feel?
I'm very excited.
Yeah, you seem subdued, but in the inside, he's a boiling inferno.
I am. It's true. I can just barely contain myself.
Well, congratulations, Steve. This is the Deadbeat Devs. I guess that's the end of our build guide.
Well, installing the OS is kind of important.
Yeah. If you can't figure out how to do a Windows install, then you should probably just, I don't know, figure it out. I won't say anything rude. Anyways, that's all for us today. Hope you enjoyed the build guide. If you watched all the way through, kudos to you. If you leave a comment down below, we will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. Any questions, or if you just want to talk, leave whatever you want. Thanks for watching. Deadbeat Devs signing off.